Okay, this time we will tell the story of a classic film called Fight Club, which was released in 1999. The genre is drama and dark comedy. So let's start the story. It begins with a man who we will call as the narrator who is being threatened by a man named Tyler. Then he remembered to tell his life story from the beginning. This narrator is an office worker who is so busy that he suffers from prolonged insomnia. Activities in the office are very boring for him. Then this narrator has the characteristics of someone else, namely the victim of advertisements, where he will buy things he finds interesting and really should be bought. The furniture in his house is so complete that he always double-checks the items he hasn't bought in the catalog. Because of his insomnia, the narrator went to the doctor to inquire about his condition. But the doctor instead told the narrator to exercise often. The narrator said that he was suffering a lot, therefore the doctor suggested the narrator go to church to attend a group session for men with testicular cancer. That's where the narrator will know what suffering is. Long story short, the narrator goes to a group therapy session. There the patients with testicular cancer tell all their sad stories. Then there is one session where they have to hug and pour out their hearts. The narrator is paired with a man named Bob, who has a disorder in which his breasts are large like a woman's. Bob tells the story of his life. And when it's the narrator's turn, she cries too. He felt sorry for the stories of these patients. However, after that day's meeting, the narrator was finally able to sleep soundly. Since that day, the narrator is addicted to entering various therapy sessions. He feels freedom. When the patient cries, he will cry loudly. The narrator is looking everywhere for information about therapy sessions. Even though he wasn't dying like the patients there, to him it was like a vacation. The next scene shows the narrator returning to visit the testicular cancer patient group session. Not long ago, a woman with a quite unique appearance appeared. She was Marla Singer. Marla is not sick at all, just like the narrator. The narrator meets Marla in another therapist session as well. This makes the narrator even less excited. Because of Marla's behavior, reflects her too. The narrator can't cry anymore. He even had insomnia again. The narrator hates Marla so much, she interferes with her life. So the narrator tries to approach Marla and immediately asks Marla to leave the therapy session, because he's not dead at all, and threatens to unmask Marla. Marla again says that she will reveal who the narrator is to everyone. Finally, the narrator has an idea to schedule who's coming to which session, so they will not meet in the same session. Hearing this, Marla agreed. After that, the narrator returns to his activities. Busy out of town, across different time gaps. The narrator is an eco-coordinator who checks on car accidents produced by his company and see what's wrong with this product. The narrator has a very bland life. Even on board the plane, the narrator hopes for an accident. After awakening from his dream, the narrator conversed with the man beside him. He's Tyler Durden, a soap maker and seller. That's where the narrator and Tyler meet. During the flight, Tyler said that an orange juice soap was put together. It could be dynamite. Believe it or not, things at home can be used as wheels. The narrator is amazed by Tyler's knowledge. Then, the narrator returns to his apartment. But what happened? He saw his apartment, which was on fire. Police say the narrator's stove gave off gas for days. And it looks like the fridge was the first to make a splash. When looking around, the narrator finds Marla's phone number, but when she is about to call Marla, the narrator evens out and remembers Tyler's business card. He decided to call Tyler. They finally met at a bar. There the narrator will tell his complaints. All the furniture that he was proud of just vanished. Here Tyler cheers the narrator by saying not to be too perfect by buying things you shouldn't have to buy. The narrator is too rich in his possessions. After drinking at the bar, the narrator asks to stay at Tyler's house for a while. There, Tyler agrees, but Tyler asks the narrator to hit him first. The narrator looks confused, but with Tyler's persuasion keeps asking the narrator to hit him. The narrator does too. Because it feels fun, the narrator instead invites Tyler to continue fighting. After the fight, Tyler invites the narrator to his house. This house looks very fragile and neglected. There is nothing good in this house: dirty water, the smell of factory waste, because next to the house there is a factory. Even if it rains, the water will enter and the electricity must be cut off immediately. But the narrator somehow stays with Tyler. After that, together, Tyler and the narrator often fight in front of the bar, which is enough to attract the attention of visitors. They become a spectacle. After every fight, the narrator feels calm and happy. Every weekday they will work as usual. And on weekends, they would gather to fight. Since the fame of Tyler and the narrator fighting, and it turned out to be quite entertaining, Tyler and the narrator made a club called the Fight Club. Fight Club has some rules, which is never talk about Fight Club out there. And if told to stop, everything must stop. Fighting consists of two people, one-on-one. Don't wear t-shirts and shoes. The final rule: everyone must fight. The fight begins. Everyone enjoyed the show. Even those who fought didn't have a problem with the injuries they received. Everyone is having fun. Day after day the fight is happening in the Fight Club. It's not about winning or losing, but from the screams of the members, making the narrator feel alive again. In the morning, the narrator receives a call from Marla asking for a 2-week absence. Because Marla once tried to enter the narrator's chosen therapy session, but the narrator wasn't there. The narrator also says that he has found a new group. Hearing this, Marla was curious. But the narrator doesn't tell Marla and just leaves the call. The next morning, the narrator sees Tyler's bedroom door closed. Even though in 2 months, Tyler never closed the door. At breakfast, Marla just passed the narrator. The narrator is a little strange and asks Marla why she came to the house. Hearing this, Marla was annoyed by the narrator's words and left her. It wasn't long before Tyler came and told them how they got to know each other. Before Tyler could explain, the narrator had already guessed what had happened. So Tyler hears the phone is still active and decides to go to Marla because it sounds like Marla is about to commit suicide. When Tyler came to Marla's house, it wasn't long before the sound of a police car. Marla also asked Tyler and took him away from that place. And Tyler took Marla to his house. After that, they made love. Tyler asks if the narrator likes Marla. The narrator says no. Tyler also tells the narrator not to tell Marla who Tyler is, or their friendship will be ruined. Since then, the narrator is angry and Tyler is happy to be with Marla, which disturbed the narrator greatly. The narrator often does activities at home alone, while Tyler is in the room with Marla. Not long after, a policeman's phone call was heard reporting the development of She's apartment, which was revealed after further investigation. The fire was caused by dynamite which was made by himself. The police asked the narrator to think of people who might hate the narrator. Because there was a possibility this explosion was planned. Here the narrator is suspicious of Tyler. Because Tyler once told me about a dynamo that you can make yourself. After receiving the call, the narrator is visited by Marla. Marla tries to seduce the narrator, but the narrator utters a sentence that offends Marla, and Marla leaves the narrator. In the evening, Tyler invites the narrator to find fat to make soap. Tyler plans to make soap from human fat, because that's the best. The fat is obtained from the removal of the liposuction clinic. After getting fat, they make it at home. Tyler explains how to make soap. Fat is mixed with an ingredient called lane, it becomes soap. However, instead of making soap, Tyler takes the narrator's hand and hands him the secret powder. The narrator's hands become blistered. Tyler wants the narrator to be able to endure pain so he can learn to be a more mature person and ready to face death at any time. Then, long story short, the narrator meets Bob, friends in the therapy group. There, Bob said that he was no longer in the therapy group. He said that he had joined a secret group and was forbidden to reveal his name. The narrator immediately interrupts and says he's a member of the club too. They never met because their schedules were different. That same night, they decided to go to the Fight Club. In this scene, you can see all the members gathered in the Fight Club. It wasn't long before two men arrived who turned out to be the owner of the bar. Tyler said he had permission to Irwin. But it turns out that Irwin is not the original owner. This guy has it. He's named Lou. Lou wants them all to leave the Fight Club, but Taylor invites Lou to join, and that irritates Lou. After defeating Tyler, Lou wasn't aware that Tyler was still holding out. Tyler asks Lou to give him permission. Because of Tyler's strange behavior, Lou also allowed the place to be used. The members helped Tyler. Tyler immediately gave the task of all members to fight with strangers out there. Since that day, a lot of fights everywhere. Including the narrator, he goes to his boss and threatens to report to everyone that he or some kind of failure of the car this company created. Annoyed, the boss called security and suddenly the narrator hit himself. It changed the position of his boss so threatened. The narrator managed to get compensation in the form of computers, fax machines, wages for 52 weeks and 48 flights. That's enough to build a fight club. Since then, the Fight Club has received new missions. Damage the antenna, lure birds to come to the car dealership so that the car is dirty, even damage some cars on the side of the road. I do not know what plans Tyler made, but so far, Tyler wants to break people's perception of the size of success. How much money is in the bank, or what car is used? According to Tyler, this world is just a trash game. Long story short, the narrator sees Tyler making a bunk bed. It turns out that Tyler decided to recruit several people to help carry out his actions. In fact, the narrator is still confused about Tyler's intentions. But somehow, the narrator still believes in Tyler. After coming home from somewhere, the narrator is confused. All the members are gathered in the TV room. Tyler said they were celebrating something. When he saw the news, it turned out that Tyler and the other members were drawing smiling faces on a building. Everyone is happy, except the narrator. They have run a project called Project Mayhem. Next, they were attending a press conference that was discussing the vandalism incident made by Tyler's group. Not long after, one of the parties investigating this case went to the toilet. All members immediately followed the man, and when entering the toilet, Tyler immediately attacked along with all his other members. Tyler asks for the investigation to be canceled or this man's penis will be cut off. The man complied. The narrator is so far still confused about all of Tyler's plans, and Tyler seems to trust the blonde even more. In the Fight Club, the narrator fights the blonde. He hit really hard, lost control, and left all the members astonished. After the Fight Club meeting, they went somewhere. Halfway through, the narrator expresses his frustration at not being involved in the Mayhem project in the first place. Tyler also revealed that he had been involved in the Fight Clan from the start. Now Project Mayhem is no different. So basically, the narrator is jealous. The narrator wants a discussion first because the two of them build the Fight Club. While Tyler had a different view, that what they had to do was better not to associate it with friendship. Tyler also knew that the narrator had suspected him of blowing up his apartment. Before long, Tyler let go of the wheel. Tyler asks the narrator to learn to let go and let go. Not long after the accident happened. Then the narrator passed out. After regaining consciousness, he was shocked by the state of Tyler's house filled with troops. The narrator is very confused and can't find Tyler anywhere. Even when about to hold the file, the blonde held it and said that everything was under control. When asking where Taylor is, the blonde says the first rule, don't ask Project Mayhem. The narrator is so frustrated, he doesn't know what his next step will be. Suddenly someone shouted for help. Someone is laid on the table. The narrator asks for an explanation of what happened. It turns out that they have been on a mission to destroy a company's artwork and destroy a cafe. At first it went smoothly, but when the police attacked, Bob was shot. Hearing this, the narrator is very upset with their actions. He decided to go to Tyler's room, and he saw some flight tickets. From then on, the narrator went to every place Tyler had ever been, but he found nothing. Even he also just found out that the Fight Club has closed. The narrator feels everything is like a dream. He then went to a bar and someone greeted him, as if they knew the narrator. When questioned, this man said that the narrator came here last night, asking security. The narrator also asks the name of the man who came last night. The man answered Tyler Durden. The narrator is very confused. He also called Marla, and it was revealed that they had been in a relationship for a long time. Before long, Tyler's voice was heard behind the narrator. He asked Taylor for clarity. Tyler also said that the narrator already knew the answer. Why does everyone think Tyler and the narrator are the same person? When he closes his eyes, it is revealed that Tyler and the narrator are the same person. So Tyler Durden is the other side of the narrator's hidden soul. Everything that happened was done by him alone. The narrator suddenly faints, and that's where the character swap takes place. Evidently, in the middle of the night, Tyler called a lot of people. The narrator returns home and the house is completely empty. The narrator then looks for Marla. Marla looks confused with the narrator's different behavior every day. The narrator admits that he has two personalities and asks Marla to leave the city. Find a secluded place because Marla is part of his bad plan. The narrator gives money and tells Marla to get on a bus. After that, the narrator went to the police. He claimed to be a terrorist who had been wanted by the police while carrying the documentary evidence in his possession. Then here, the lead investigator comes out of the room and these cops say the rules of Project Mayhem. Anyone involved in Project Mayhem must be punished. It turns out that these three policemen are also members of Project Playing. When he saw a gap, the narrator threatened the policemen and fled there. The narrator is reminded of the building that is about to be demolished. And he went into the building. While going to the basement, he finds a white file containing a large number of bombs. It wasn't long before Tyler appeared, saying that it wasn't just this building. But there are still 10 other buildings that are kept by BOM. The narrator is eager to stop the bomb. But he doesn't know how. Tyler stopped the narrator's actions. But still the narrator is actually wrestling with himself. On the side of the TV scene, the narrator is alone there. As aware of the narrator, we are back again in the initial scene, when the narrator is threatened, which turns out to be by himself. They will witness the results of the plans they have lived so far. Collapse of the financial world. While looking out the window, the narrator sees Marla returning, but this time brought by the Project Mayhem kids. The narrator asks Tyler to get out of his mind. He now realized what he saw was not real. He can control Tyler's true destiny, and in the end the narrator decides to shoot him in the head. After shooting Tyler, the narrator is still alive because he shot in the wall of the cheek. And before long, Marla approached the narrator. At the end of the scene, the narrator is talking to Marla and soon the high-rise buildings explode. Okay, that's the end of the movie Fight Club, a lot of hidden messages and the intent of this film. Basically, the message from this film is that the narrator as an office worker is tired of the capitalist world, where everyone is tied to unimportant capitalist goods. Don't forget to subscribe and thank you for watching.